NASCAR talks about restructuring the playoffs and more Honda talks. Let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, NASCAR decided that they would have their first meeting of its playoff committee. The panel of more than 24 members included active Hall of Fame drivers, series executives, representatives from manufacturers, and the media industry. This from NASCAR.com. NASCAR Managing Director of Racing Communications Mike Ford said Joe Gibbs Racing Christopher Bell was among the active drivers on the committee weighing changes to the NASCAR playoffs beginning in the 2026 season. So there you go. This is the first meeting where they're going to talk about some real, actual things as to how they will change the playoffs, or if they'll change the playoffs, or if the playoffs will even still be around. We'll get to that in just a minute. But interesting of note, they mentioned specifically, Mike Ford did there, that Christopher Bell is going to be one of those drivers that are in these meetings. It also said former and past drivers, and I saw somewhere it was mentioned that a lot of these drivers had podcasts, so I would assume Dale Jr. is in on this, and I would also assume that probably Denny Hamlin would be in on this, being that he's a car owner, being that he's a driver, and also being that he's got a podcast. Of course, he's in the litigation with NASCAR, so maybe he's not, but let's continue. You're looking at about 25 people on the panel from all walks of life, and I was kind of interested to see how it would start. Ford said the first to speak was a retired NASCAR Hall of Famer who had a bunch of very prepared research, and his idea to pitch was to go back to the 36-race championship. Others went the opposite direction and said, well, I like the playoffs. I think that it is important to have eliminations, but how will we do it a little bit differently? Is it a 7-race lead-in to a 3-race championship? That was one idea that was kicked off. And do we reduce the field from 16 drivers to 12 or 10 as we did in prior iterations of the chase and playoffs? So there you go. Starting off very strong there. It doesn't mention which former driver came out and said we need to get rid of the playoffs altogether. But shout out to him, because I think a lot of fans feel like that. This current version of the playoffs was never asked for. All people wanted way back in the day was for races and race wins to weigh more instead of having, only 5 points for a race win. They just wanted the wins to matter more. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know why NASCAR came up with the chase, and I know why NASCAR came with the playoffs. They did it for TV. TV wanted something, and they wanted something to chase, just like the NFL, just like MLB, other stick and ball sports. They wanted a playoff system to sell TV rights to. So I understand where they were going with this, but I also like the fact that he did at least mention, or it is now officially on record, that people, or that someone has spoken up and said, hey, how about we go back to no playoffs at all? However, the very next line there says some thought the opposite altogether. They wanted to stick with a playoff system, and then they got into how they would amend that playoff system as well. So it sounds like everything's on the table. But they specifically mentioned, do we stick with 16 or do we do 12 or 10? And they also talked about, do we do a 7-race playoff into a 3-race deal for the championship? Me personally, I don't think the playoffs are going anywhere. There's too much TV money at stake for that. But I do like the fact that somebody did at least speak up and say, hey, let's do a 36-race, basically playoff for the championship. Article goes on to say, so there was a lot discussed. Step 1 of the meeting was to really just throw ideas out there, good or bad. The goal of the playoff system, whether it's keeping it or changing it, that crowns a deserving champion, but also maintains or elevates fan engagement. Whether from a digital or social perspective, or butts in the seats and eyeballs on the television, we want the competition for sure, but we want fans to really be engaged as well. To be really engaged as well. Sorry, read that wrong. Anyway, it's cool what he's saying here. He is actually, for once, the focus is going to be on the fans. They want fan engagement. They have finally figured out that social media works better when the fans engage, and if the fans are just completely rage baited all the time for things that they don't like, you will get engagement, but eventually that's just going to run out. So I do like the fact that he's actually, for once here, listening to the fans, and he seems open to a lot of different ideas. Which way this will go, who knows? These are very preliminary talks, but I do like the fact that he's at least thinking about, hey, do we need to get rid of the playoffs? Do we need to amend the playoffs? So it seems like a lot of stuff is up for grabs and on the table here. Which way it goes is anybody's guess. However, they did mention one more thing about Christopher Bell, so I wanted to touch on that as well. Speaking on Christopher Bell, NASCAR has really turned to him as a leader in the garage, Ford said. I think how he handled the disappointment of Martinsville missing the championship round after his last lap move was deemed illegal. We took notice of that. He was vocal and super candid, and I think a lot of people would probably assume that we didn't care for that, but it's the opposite. We met with him in January to talk about where we were with the playoffs and to invite him as part of this committee. He did speak up in the committee, gave some ideas that we should maybe think about. Rotation of the championship, for instance, was big on his mind. So there you go. At the very least, at least C-Bell has spoke up for the fans. I do believe we're probably going to keep the championship system. So if we keep the championship system, I'm glad that C-Bell spoke up and said, how about we rotate the last race? Because if a team, like say maybe Penske, is really, really good at, let's say, the final race in Phoenix, it's like they would win that 3 years in a row or something. Crazy, huh? And to be fair, that is not shade at Penske. That is shade at the system itself. I'm not hating the player. Penske played the game the best way and has won it the last 3 years, but I am hating the game. All right, moving right along, Adam Stern on top of Stellantis. Honda remains the other car maker that industry execs are watching to see if it finds a way into NASCAR in the near future. He reported that yesterday, and then NASCAR rumor nostalgia dropped this today. Well, now Adam Stern has mentioned Honda looking to be entering the sport, something that's been talked about for years now, but heard the rumor within the last couple weeks. The crazy thing I heard is that Brad Keselowski was one of the people trying to lure Honda in. Don't worry, I wouldn't anticipate Roush leaving Ford. Sounds like BK is looking at other avenues to get Honda support in. With Honda possibly leaving IndyCar soon, perhaps this could be their ticket into NASCAR. Also on the Ram front, sounds like NASCAR could be close to officially granting Ram to enter the Truck Series in 2026 if things went quickly and smoothly. Apparently Dodge could enter Cup as soon as 2027 at the earliest. So there you go, a lot to break down there. Adam Stern saying Honda still very active and could possibly be another manufacturer that gets in. So maybe we get lucky and we get both, a Dodge/Ram in there, and also we get Honda in there as well. And then to add further fuel to the fire, like Honda's been talked about for a long time here, but further fuel to the fire that Brad Keselowski is somehow connected to Honda, even though he's not expected to leave Ford, but he's still trying to find ways to get Honda into the sport. So it's very interesting that everybody is trying really, really hard to get Honda to come into the sport, and it seems like Honda is very, very interested in coming to the sport as well. So a lot of rumors out there. Like I said, take them with a grain of salt, but it is interesting that there's a lot of smoke, and we'll see if there's fire here. But Dodge coming as early as 2026 with the Ram brand to the Truck Series, and then by 2027 could be in the Cup Series. I think that is huge news, so awesome if it happens. Right now, just a rumor, but also going to be huge news if Honda makes a move too. So what if we get two manufacturers after having only three for so many years? We'll just see how it plays out. All right, that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, I would love to have your subscription. If not, I'll just keep making these things on my way to New River for Friday, helping Tate Fogelman. So pull for him in the Cars Tour race. I won't be there Saturday. I'm just going to be there Friday helping. Yeah, thanks for your time. Peace.